Hello and welcome back to Tech and EduSpark Hub, where technology meets education. In our last video, we talked about the basics of the for loop in Python. Simple, clean and powerful. But today we are taking it up to the next level. We'll be looping through multiple lists at once and looping through each item in the list. By the end of this video, you will not only understand the advanced for loops, but you start coding them like a pro. So if you are ready to stop writing beginner's code, let's loop in literally. Firstly, let's look at looping through multiple lists. Let's say we have a variable called student names and we assign it with an equal sign to a list. And in this list, you can put in multiple names of students we want. So I'm just going to be putting different names randomly in this list. You can see as shown on the screen, we have multiple names of students in this list. Secondly, let's say we have another variable called student scores and we assign it with an equal sign to another list. And in this list, since we have four numbers of students in the student names, we can just put four random scores in this list. So I'll be putting random scores in this list as shown on the screen. You can see we have the student names which contain four characters in the list, and on the other hand, we also have the student scores which contain four scores in this list. Now, to loop through these two lists at once by pairing the student names and their assigned random score together, we can just simply use the for loop and the Python inbuilt keyword which is known as the zip. And to do this, we can just simply write the keyword for and we can say for names, comma scores in zip. Notice how the zip changed its color because it is an inbuilt function in Python. And inside this parenthesis or bracket, we can input the list or the variable of the list we are trying to work with. And in this case, we are trying to work with student names and student scores. So since we are putting names first in this for loop, we can simply put the student names first, followed by a comma. And since the scores is coming second in this for loop, we can also put it second in this zip function. So in this case, I'll be putting the student score second. And don't forget your colon at the back of your for loop. And under this for loop, we can simply indent what we want to happen under this for loop. So in this case, I can just simply print the names followed by a comma, and I can put a string by saying scored. And on the other hand, I can put another comma and put the scores in this print function. And this way, we have successfully looped through these two lists at once. Now, let's run this code and see what it will output in the console. When we run this code, you can see it print out each names of students in the student names list. So these names in the print function is standing for the student names in this zip, followed by the score, which is what it is outputting in the console. And we have the scores, which is standing for the student scores in this zip function. So we can see it is outputting each student name with the score that we assign to the students. You can see it is telling us that Jack scored 40 and so on and so forth like that. And that is the work of the zip function. It helps us to pair the list together at once. Let's say we have multiple numbers of scores in these student scores as shown on the screen. And we want to get the highest scores in these student scores. Sometimes we might have larger number of data that we won't be able to look for the high score virtually. And this is where the for loop comes in because we can use the for loop to look for the high score in a list no matter how long the list is. And there are several ways of doing this, but the easiest way to do this is by setting a variable called high score, and we can assign it with an equal sign to 0. And in this case, we can write our for loop to check for the high score in the student scores. So we can write our for loop to loop through each scores in the student score list by saying for scores in student score. And don't forget your colon at the back of your for loop. And now that we have looked through each scores in the student score list, we can just simply indent under that for loop by checking for the high score in this list. And to do this, we can just simply write our if conditional statement and we can check if scores is greater than I score with a colon at the back of our condition, and under that condition we can simply indent what we want to happen under that condition. So we can say I score should be equal to scores, and that is if the scores is greater than I score. So let me quickly explain how this for loop works. We said for scores in student scores, which means for each scores in the student score list that we have, if the scores is greater than I score, remember that we have our I score to be 0 already. So that means it will be looping through each scores in this list and looping through the first scores, which is 40. If the scores is greater than I score, we can see that the I score is 0. So 40 is greater than the I score, which is 0. The I score will be equal to scores. So this I score will be set to the 40 that we have initially. And it will look through the second item in the list again, which is 50. And it will check if the scores, which is 50, is greater than the I score. And remember that the I score has been set to 40 after looping through the first item in the list. And the scores, which is 50, will now be greater than the I score that we have initially, which is 40, after looping through the first list. So the I score will now be set to 50 again on looping through the second item in the list. And this for loop will continue looping through each scores in the student score list that we have until it gets the highest score in that list. And this is how the for loop works for this case. And now that we have used the for loop to loop through the high score in this student score list, we can then exit the loop by moving out of the indentation to print out the high score. And in this case, you can exit a loop by moving out of the indentation of the loop that you are working with. So in this case, you can see I have moved out of the indentation of this for loop, and I can just simply print out the high score as shown on the screen. And this way, when I run this code, you can see it print out the high score that we have in the student score list. And this is a way the for loop can help us to loop through a longer list in case we are working with a larger data. And that is how you can take your for loop from beginner level to expert level. And in this lesson, we covered the SIP function and using conditional with loops. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss any tech or educational drop from Tech and EduSpark Hub, and keep sharing, and until next time, keep coding and keep learning.